Today, we will discuss hydraulic clutch parts and construction. Number 1. Clutch pedal. The clutch pedal is the primary part that engages a clutch in a vehicle. The clutch disengagement process starts when a driver presses the clutch pedal. Number 2. Master cylinder. As the name suggests, it is primary hydraulic cylinder in which the clutch fluid is applied at high pressure with help of a piston present inside the cylinder. The clutch fluid reservoir is connected to the master cylinder, which supplies the clutch fluid when the clutch pedal is pressed. Number 3. Pressure pipe. It supplies the fluid from the master cylinder to the slave cylinder at high pressure to operate the clutch. Number 4. Slave cylinder. The slave cylinder is the second hydraulic cylinder present in the system. It consists of a piston rod that is connected to the clutch release fork. The fluid from the master cylinder enters the slave cylinder and presses against the push piston rod, which in turn actuates the release fork. Number 5. Release fork. The clutch release fork is connected to the slave cylinder at one end, and another end is connected to the clutch shaft, which has the clutch release bearing mounted on it. When the clutch pedal is pressed, it is used to press the release bearing on the diaphragm to apply pressure on it. Number 6. Release bearing. Clutch release bearing is mounted on the clutch shaft. It presses against the middle of the diaphragm spring when the clutch pedal is pressed. Number 7. Diaphragm spring. The diaphragm is a semicircular or C-shaped spring. It is mounted on the pressure plate and is used to maintain pressure on the clutch plate. Number 8. Pressure plate. The purpose of the pressure plate is to push the friction plate against the flywheel. It is kept under pressure with the help of the diaphragm spring. When the clutch pedal is pressed, the diaphragm spring pulls away from the pressure plate clutch plate, which causes disengagement of the engine from the transmission. Number 9. Spline sleeves. The spline sleeves are located between the friction lining of the clutch plate and the pressure plate. The pressure plate keeps the spline sleeves under the pressure to keep the clutch engaged. When the pressure plate releases pressure, the spline sleeves to pull away and it disengages the engine from the transmission. Number 10. Clutch plate. The clutch plate is held between the pressure plate and the flywheel. It has friction lining on both sides of its surface. The frictional surface creates friction between the flywheel and the pressure plate. The friction between them is responsible for producing or interrupting the power flow between the engine and the transmission. Number 11. Flywheel. The flywheel is the part that is connected to the engine crankshaft at one end and the clutch plate at the other end. The flywheel is responsible for transferring the flow of power from the engine to the transmission through the clutch plate. So, those are the parts of the hydraulic clutch. This is now the construction of the whole hydraulic clutch assembly. I will show you now a video of how hydraulic clutch assembly works.
Clutch system is a device that regulates the engine power to the transmission. This device will constantly cut and connecting the power to the transmission. But how that work? Today I will show you the animation that explain how manual clutch work. Manual clutch works using the clamp principle. You can see this animation. There are 3 plates. The red plate is connected to the input shaft, while the blue plate is connected to the output shaft. If the red plates clamp the blue plate, the power from the input is passed to the output. But if the plates are stretched apart, the input power is cut off. That is the basic principle of manual clutch. Now let's learn in more detail. This is the anatomy of the manual clutch on car. The clutch has 3 main parts. First, the flywheel. Flywheel is an input device that connected to the engine crankshaft. It functions as a drive plate. Second, the clutch disc. Clutch disc is an output plate that connected to the output shaft. It used to receive the engine power and transmit it to the transmission. And finally, there is pressure plate. This plate serves to clamp and stretch the clutch disc to the flywheel. To keep the clutch disc strongly attached to the flywheel, we need a spring. However, the spring used in this clutch is shaped like this. This is a diaphragm spring, which is unique. If you press the center of spring, the outer side will move past the center. This movement is very important for the clutch. Then there's the clutch housing. Its use as a place to install pressure plate and springs. Clutch housing is bolted to the flywheel and the pressure plate is installed into the clutch housing. So, the pressure plate will rotate according to the flywheel rotation. Finally, there is a clutch release mechanism. It consists of a release bearing, clutch lever, clutch cable, and clutch pedal. When we press the clutch pedal, the clutch lever moves forward to push the release bearing. It compresses the diaphragm spring. That pressure causes the diaphragm spring leverage the pressure plate, so the clutch disc and flywheel are distancing. It makes the clutch disc is not rotate, even the flywheel rotate tightly. So the engine power is not transmitted. When we release the clutch pedal, the spring will returns to the starting position. Thus, the pressure plate presses back the clutch disc. And the plates are connected back. It makes the flywheel rotate and engine power is transmitted to the transmission. Why didn't the slip occur? If you see deeper, the clutch disc has rough layer. This layer prevents slippage when the plates are rubbing together. That's how the manual clutch work. Subscribe to support us and stay tuned for the next video.
Now, let us have quiz. Please answer it honestly.